Captain Li Wu-jin stood on the bridge of the Harmony's edge, watching the empty space where his home should be. 3 months ago, Earth had gone silent. No messages, no signals, nothing. The last transmission they received was a warning about strange ships appearing in the outer systems. Now those same ships were coming for New Busan. "Captain, we're getting movement on the long-range sensors," said Commander Park So-young from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, bringing up the data on the main screen. "Looks like a big fleet coming out of hyperspace," Wu-jin felt his stomach drop. He'd been hoping they had more time. The evacuation ships were still loading people from the planet below. Thousands of families were trying to escape, but there weren't enough transport ships for everyone. "How many ships?" he asked. Park So-young checked her readings twice before answering. "Over 200, sir. All of them are Corvan design." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. The Corvan Empire had been moving through this part of space for months, taking over every planet they found. No one had been able to stop them. Their ships were different from anything humans had ever built. They looked alive, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead Corvan ship," said Lieutenant Choi Min-ho from the communication station. He was the youngest officer on the bridge, barely 25 years old. His hands were shaking as he worked the controls. "Put it on the main screen," Wu-jin ordered. The screen filled with the image of an alien creature. Admiral Kim Tae-ho of the Corvan Empire looked like a cross between a shark and an insect. His skin was gray and covered in small scales. 4 arms moved as he spoke, and his voice came through the translator with a cold, mechanical tone. "Human vessels, this is Admiral Kim Tae-ho of the Corvan Empire. You are in violation of Imperial space. Surrender your weapons and submit to incorporation into the Corvan Collective. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Resistance will result in complete planetary sterilization." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Wu-jin looked around at his crew. These were good people who had signed up to protect the colonies, not to fight an impossible war. His small fleet had only 12 ships, mostly destroyers and frigates. Against 200 Corvan vessels, they didn't stand a chance. "Captain," said Park So-young quietly, "what are your orders?" Wu-jin thought about the families still on the planet below. The evacuation ships could maybe save half the population if they had enough time. But the Corvans wouldn't wait. They never did. "Send a message to all ships," he said finally. "We're going to buy the evacuation fleet as much time as we can. Form up in defensive positions around the planet. Make every shot count." The crew went to work preparing for battle. Wu-jin watched them move with professional skill, even though they all knew this would probably be their last fight. These were colonial defense forces, not frontline military. They had signed up to protect mining stations and trade routes, not to face the most powerful military force in known space. Dr. Yoon Hai-won came onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was the fleet's science officer, a small woman with quick eyes who had spent the last few weeks studying captured Corvan technology. "Captain, I've been analyzing the enemy ship designs," she said. "I think I found something important." "What is it, Doctor?" "Their ships aren't just built, they're grown. The hull material is partly organic, like a living creature. That's why they can repair themselves during battle and adapt to new weapons so quickly." Wu-jin frowned. "Is there a way to use that against them?" "Maybe. If we could generate the right frequency of electromagnetic pulse, it might disrupt their organic systems. But we'd need to get very close, and the power requirements would be enormous." Before Wu-jin could respond, alarms started going off all over the bridge. "Captain, the Corvan fleet is moving into attack formation," reported Park So-young. "They're not waiting for the full hour." On the main screen, the alien ships spread out in a perfect pattern. Each vessel was different, but they all had that same organic look. Some were long and thin like snakes, others were round and bulky, like beetles. All of them had weapons that glowed with a sickly green light. "All ships, this is Captain Lee," Wu-jin said into his communicator. "Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to give our people time to escape. Stay close to the planet and use the orbital stations for cover. The first Corvin ships came in fast, moving in a spiral pattern that made them hard to target. Wu Jin's destroyers opened fire with everything they had. Bright beams of energy crossed the space between the fleets, lighting up the darkness. The human weapons hit their targets, but the Corvin ships barely seemed to notice. Their hulls absorbed the energy and kept coming. Within minutes, they were close enough to return fire. The Corvin weapons were unlike anything in human experience. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they fired streams of what looked like living plasma. When it hit a human ship, the plasma seemed to eat through the hull, spreading across the surface like acid. The destroyer Soul's Light took a direct hit and began breaking apart. Captain Nam Dong-wook tried to keep his ship together, but the organic plasma was consuming the hull faster than the damage control teams could work. "This is Soul's Light," came Dong-wook's voice over the radio. "We're losing power and life support, preparing to abandon ship." "Negative, Soul's Light," replied Wu Jin. "Can you ram the nearest Corvin ship?" There was a pause. Then Dong-wook's voice came back calm and steady. "Understood, Captain. It's been an honor serving with you." The Soul's Light changed course, heading straight for a large Corvin cruiser. The alien ship tried to move away, but it was too close. The two vessels collided in a brilliant explosion that lit up half the sky. When the light faded, both ships were gone. "One down, 199 to go," muttered Park So-young. The battle continued for 2 hours. The human ships fought with everything they had, using hit-and-run tactics in the cover of the asteroid belt around New Busan. They managed to destroy or damage several more Corvin vessels, but they were losing ships faster than they could replace them. By the end of the second hour, only 6 human ships were still fighting. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho was monitoring the long-range sensors when something strange appeared on his screen. At first, he thought it was interference from the battle. Energy readings were jumping all over the place, showing impossible signatures that didn't match any known technology. "Captain," he called out, "I'm getting some weird readings on the deep space sensors. Can it wait, Lieutenant?" Wu Jin was busy coordinating the defense of the last evacuation ship. "Sir, these readings don't make sense. It looks like something big is coming, but the energy signatures are all wrong." Park So-young looked over at Min-ho's station. "What kind of wrong?" "Like the readings are arriving before whatever is causing them." "That's impossible unless—" Min-ho stopped talking and stared at his screen. "Unless what?" demanded Wu Jin. "Unless something is moving faster than light in a way we've never seen before." Before anyone could respond, space itself began to change. Points of light appeared in the darkness, growing brighter and larger. They weren't stars or ships. They were tears in space itself, as if someone was cutting holes in reality. Admiral Kim Tae-ho noticed the disturbance at the same time. His bioships began making strange noises, high-pitched sounds that hurt to hear. The organic components of his fleet were reacting to something that shouldn't exist. "What is that?" he demanded from his bridge crew. His science officer checked the readings 3 times before answering. "Unknown, Admiral. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. Whatever is coming, it's using technology we've never encountered." The tears in space grew larger, and something began to emerge from them. Ships, but not like any ships the Corvins or humans had ever seen. They were sleek and dark, with smooth lines that seemed to bend light around them. They moved without any visible engines, gliding through space as if gravity itself was pushing them forward. Admiral Kim Tae-ho felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of conquest: fear. His bioships were screaming now, their organic components in full panic. Whatever these new ships were, they terrified every living thing in his fleet. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessels." "Put it through." A human voice came over the radio, calm and confident. "This is Fleet Admiral Kang Subin of the Terra Fleet. Colonial vessels, fall back to safe distance. We'll handle this." Captain Lee Wu Jin stared at the main screen in shock. Human ships? Somehow, impossibly, Earth had not only survived but had sent a rescue fleet. But these ships didn't look like anything Earth had ever built before. "Sir," whispered Park So-young, "what do we do?" Wu Jin looked at the 30 human ships that had just appeared, facing down nearly 200 Corvin vessels. The smart thing would be to retreat as ordered. but he couldn't help wondering what had happened to Earth in the months since they had lost contact. These ships looked like they belonged to a completely different civilization. The Terra fleet spread out in perfect formation, each ship taking position with mechanical precision. They didn't hurry or show any sign of concern about being outnumbered 6-1. The Corvin attack began at dawn on New Busan. Their biomechanical ships moved like living predators, circling the human defense fleet with deadly grace. Captain Li Wujin watched from his bridge as the alien vessels prepared their weapons. All ships spread out and use the asteroid field for cover, he ordered into his communicator. Don't let them surround us. The first wave of Corvin plasma hit the destroyer Busan's Hope. The green, living fire spread across the ship's hull like a disease, eating through metal and plastic alike. Captain Park Jin-woo tried to keep his ship in the fight, but the bioplasma was too fast. Within minutes, the destroyer was breaking apart. Busan's Hope is gone, reported Commander Park So-young, her voice steady despite the terrible sight on the main screen. That makes 3 ships lost in the first hour. Wu Jin clenched his fists. They had started with 12 ships and now they were down to 9. The evacuation transports were still loading civilians from the planet below, but at this rate, there wouldn't be any defenders left to protect them. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho worked frantically at his sensor station. The strange readings he had detected earlier were getting stronger, but he couldn't make sense of them. Energy signatures appeared and disappeared like ghosts, always just at the edge of detection. Captain, I'm still getting those weird readings, he reported. Whatever it is, it's getting closer. Keep monitoring it, Wu Jin replied. But focus on the battle. We need every advantage we can get. Dr. Yoon Hai-wan moved between the bridge stations, checking her data pad and watching the enemy ships. She had been studying the Corvin biotechnology for weeks, trying to find a weakness. Now seeing them in action, she was beginning to understand how they worked. Captain, look at how they move, she said, pointing at the main screen. The ships aren't just following orders from their commanders. They're hunting like a pack of animals. Wu Jin watched the alien formation. She was right. The Corvin ships moved with an intelligence that seemed independent of their crews. They anticipated human tactics and responded before the humans could complete their maneuvers. The organic components are networked together, Dr. Yoon continued. Each ship learns from the experiences of the others. That's why they're getting better at fighting us with every exchange. A new wave of Corvin ships came in from the starboard side, firing streams of bioplasma that forced the human fleet to scatter. The destroyer Daegu's Pride took a glancing hit that melted away half of its weapon systems. Captain Kim Young-soo's voice came over the radio from the damaged ship. This is Daegu's Pride. We've lost main power and most of our weapons. Request permission to withdraw to the planet. Negative, Daegu's Pride, Wu Jin replied. Stay in formation. Use whatever weapons you have left. The battle continued for another hour. The human ships fought with everything they had, but the Corvin forces were overwhelming. The aliens had numbers, better technology, and ships that could repair themselves during battle. Every time the humans damaged a Corvin vessel, it would retreat briefly and return with its wounds healed. Captain Nam Dong-wook commanded the destroyer Seoul's Pride from the center of the formation. His ship had taken damage but was still fighting. He watched as another human ship, the frigate Incheon's Guard, took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of fire. That's 5 ships down, he reported over the radio. We can't keep this up much longer. Admiral Kim Tae-ho watched the battle from his flagship with satisfaction. The humans were brave, but bravery meant nothing against superior technology. His bioships were learning and adapting with every attack. Soon the last human defenders would be destroyed, and his forces could begin the sterilization of the planet below. Admiral, the human fleet is down to 7 ships, reported his tactical officer. They're falling back to the planet's inner orbital zone. Good. Signal the bioships to begin final approach. I want this finished within the hour. But as the Corvin fleet moved closer to New Busan, something strange began to happen. The bioships started making nervous sounds, high-pitched whines that grew louder as they approached the planet. The organic components of the ships were sensing something that the crews couldn't detect. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho's readings suddenly became much clearer. The energy signatures were no longer ghostly images at the edge of his sensors. They were solid, massive, and moving fast. "Captain," he called out, his voice excited. "The readings are crystallizing. I'm detecting multiple, large objects approaching at faster than light speeds. They'll be here in less than 10 minutes. Wu Jin turned to look at the young officer. "Are you sure? What kind of objects?" "Sir, the energy signatures are enormous. Whatever is coming, it's bigger than anything we've ever built." "And the power? Readings?" Minho paused, checking his instruments again. "Sir, these readings suggest technology that shouldn't be possible." Dr. Yoon Hae-won looked up from her datapad. "Lieutenant, can you identify the source of the signals?" "That's the strange part, Doctor. The quantum signatures match human technology, but amplified beyond anything in our databases. It's like someone took our basic designs and advanced them by centuries." Commander Park So-young heard this and felt a chill run down her spine. "You mean there might be other human ships coming?" "I don't know, ma'am. But whatever is approaching, it's definitely not Corvin." The battle around them continued to rage. The destroyer Gwangju's hammer exploded under concentrated fire from 3 Corvin cruisers. Captain Oh Ji-hoon managed to get most of his crew to the escape pods before his ship was destroyed. But the human fleet was now down to 6 ships. Captain Nam Dong-wook made a decision. His ship was badly damaged and running low on ammunition. If he was going to die, he wanted to take some aliens with him. "This is Seoul's pride to all ships," he announced over the radio. "My ship is crippled and we're not going to make it. I'm going to ram the nearest Corvin cruiser. Maybe I can give you a few more minutes." "Dong-wook, no." Wu Jin's voice came back immediately. "Fall back to the evacuation zone. We can protect you there." "Sir, with respect, my ship is finished. At least this way I can make it count." Dong-wook turned his destroyer toward the largest Corvin ship. He could see a massive bio-cruiser that was leading the attack. His engines were damaged, but he had enough power for one final run. The Corvin ship tried to move away when it realized what was happening, but Seoul's pride was already too close. The 2 vessels collided in a spectacular explosion that destroyed both ships and damaged several others nearby. The remaining human ships regrouped around New Busan's largest moon, using its gravity field to help maneuver. They were down to 5 ships now, facing more than 180 Corvin vessels. "Captain," said Park So-young quietly, "the evacuation ships report they've saved about 60% of the population. The rest—" She didn't finish the sentence. Wu Jin nodded, grimly. They had done what they could. Thousands of people would live because of their sacrifice. It would have to be enough. Admiral Kim Tae-ho was growing impatient. The human resistance had lasted longer than expected, and his bio-ships were becoming increasingly agitated. The organic components of his fleet were reacting to something in space that his sensors couldn't detect. "Science officer, what is causing the bio-ships to behave strangely?" he demanded. "Unknown, Admiral. They seem to be sensing some kind of threat, but our instruments show nothing unusual." Lieutenant Choi Min-ho's console began beeping rapidly. The energy signatures were getting stronger by the minute, and now he could see them clearly on his long-range sensors. "Captain, whatever is coming, it's about to arrive. Multiple contacts, approaching from hyperspace. They'll be here in less than 2 minutes. Dr. Yoon Hae-won looked at her readings and felt her heart race. The quantum signatures are definitely human, but the power levels are impossible. It's like they're using the fundamental forces of physics as weapons. Wu Jin stared at the sensor display. After months of believing that Earth had been destroyed, the possibility that humanity had not only survived but grown stronger seemed too good to be true. "All ships, prepare for unknown contacts," he ordered. "We don't know who's coming, but get ready for anything." Space around New Busan began to shimmer and bend. Points of light appeared in the darkness, growing brighter and more defined. The Corvin bio-ships started screaming, their organic components in full panic at something they could sense but not understand. Admiral Kim Tae-ho watched in growing alarm as tears began to open in space itself. His science officer was frantically checking instruments, but the readings made no sense. "Admiral, the energy levels are off the scale. Whatever is creating these spatial distortions is using technology far beyond anything we've encountered. The tiers in space grew larger, and shapes began to emerge from them. Ships, but unlike any ships that had ever been built. They were sleek and dark, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light. They moved without visible engines, gliding through space as if the laws of physics bent around them. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho stared at his sensors in amazement. "Captain, I count 30 ships. They're all showing human quantum signatures, but they're technology." He paused, unable to find words for what he was seeing. The lead ship in the new formation opened a communication channel. A woman's voice came through clearly, calm and confident. The space around New Busan changed in ways that hurt to look at. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as dozens of tears opened in the fabric of space-time. From these impossible wounds in the universe emerged ships that belonged to no known technology. Captain Lee Woo-jin watched from the bridge of Harmony's edge as the Terra fleet materialized. 30 vessels emerged from hyperspace, but they moved like ghosts, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Captain," whispered Commander Park So-young, "those are human ships, but they're nothing like anything we've ever built." The largest vessel, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the biggest Corvin biocruisers, took position at the center of the formation. Its hull was smooth and black, with surfaces that curved in ways that seemed to follow mathematical laws that human engineers had never discovered. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho stared at his sensor readings with wide eyes. "Sir, the power signatures from these ships are impossible. They're reading energy levels that should tear apart space itself." Dr. Yoon Haiwan checked her instruments 3 times before speaking. "The quantum signatures are definitely human, but the technology is beyond anything in our databases. It's like they've learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of physics." A communication channel opened, and Fleet Admiral Kang Soo-bin's voice filled the bridge. She sounded calm and confident, as if facing a fleet of 200 enemy ships was just another day at work. "This is Fleet Admiral Kang Soo-bin of the Terra Fleet. Colonial vessels fall back to safe distance. We'll handle this." Woo-jin felt a mixture of relief and confusion. Earth had survived. Humanity was alive. But these ships represented a level of advancement that seemed impossible. What had happened to his homeworld in the months since they had lost contact? "All ships, fall back as ordered," he commanded over the radio. "Move to the outer orbital zone and observe." The remaining 5 ships of the Colonial Defense Fleet pulled back, their crews watching in amazement as the Terra Fleet spread out in perfect formation. Each human ship moved with mechanical precision, taking position as if they were connected by invisible threads. Admiral Kim Tae-ho watched the human arrival from his flagship with growing unease. His bioships were screaming now, their organic components in full panic. The living parts of his vessels recognized these newcomers as something far more dangerous than any enemy they had ever encountered. "Science officer, what are those ships?" he demanded. His subordinate checked the readings repeatedly before answering. "Admiral, the energy signatures don't match anything in our database. Their technology appears to violate several known laws of physics." "That's impossible. No species has technology that advanced." "Sir, our bioships are reacting with extreme fear. The organic components are trying to retreat without orders. Whatever these humans have become, our ships recognize them as apex predators." Admiral Kim Tae-ho felt a chill run through his body. In 40 years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that could frighten Corvin biotechnology. These ships were grown from the most aggressive and adaptable organisms in the galaxy. They feared nothing, until now. Captain Oh Ji-hoon commanded the battlecruiser Gwangju's Fury, one of the Terra Fleet's primary attack vessels. His ship was sleek and deadly, armed with weapons that most species would consider impossible. As he received his orders from Admiral Kang Soo-bin, he smiled coldly. "All weapon systems prepare for engagement," he commanded his crew. "Target the largest concentrations of enemy vessels." His weapons officer, Commander Shin De-young, activated the ship's primary armament. The antimatter torpedoes were ready, each one capable of reducing a Corvin bioship to its constituent atoms. But that wasn't the most frightening weapon in their arsenal. Gravitational manipulators online, she reported. Reality anchors holding steady. We're ready to begin combat operations. Captain Yang Kyung-soo commanded the stealth frigate Ulsan Ghost, a ship that existed in multiple dimensions, simultaneously. His vessel could phase in and out of normal space, appearing anywhere within the battle zone without warning. Quantum displacement drive is active, reported his navigator. We can strike from any angle at any time. The Corvin fleet began to move, their bioships spreading out in attack formation. But something was wrong. The organic components of their vessels were resisting orders, trying to retreat from the human ships despite their commander's commands. Admiral Kim Tae-ho tried to maintain control of his fleet, but his ships were acting like frightened animals. All vessels advance and attack the human ships. They only have 30 vessels against our nearly 200. Some of his ships obeyed, moving forward with their bioplasma weapons charging, but others hesitated, their organic components overriding their crew's commands. Fleet Admiral Kang Soo-bin watched the Corvin formation with the detached interest of a scientist observing insects. Her fleet had faced much worse odds and never lost a single ship. These biological monstrosities would be no different. All ships, you are cleared to engage, she announced calmly. Remember, we want to send a message to the rest of the Corvin Empire. Make this memorable. Captain Oh Ji-hoon fired the first shot. His antimatter torpedo struck a Corvin biocruiser dead center. The result was not an explosion, but something far more dramatic. The alien ship simply ceased to exist, its matter converted to pure energy in a flash of light that could be seen from the planet below. The Corvin formation faltered as their ships witnessed something that should have been impossible. Bioships were designed to survive almost any attack, their organic components allowing them to repair and adapt. But there was no adapting to having your atoms scattered across space. Commander Shin De-young activated the Gwangju's Fury's gravitational manipulators. Space itself bent around 3 Corvin destroyers, crushing them into a point of infinite density before releasing them as a cloud of subatomic particles. Target destroyed, she reported with satisfaction. Moving to next target. Captain Yang Kyung-soo's stealth frigate appeared inside the Corvin formation without warning. His ship had phased through normal space, emerging in a position that should have been occupied by a biocruiser. Instead of colliding, the Ulsan Ghost existed in the same space as the alien ship for a brief moment before unleashing its weapons at point-blank range. The Corvin ship exploded from the inside out, its biocomponents unable to comprehend what had just happened to them. Admiral Kim Tae-ho watched in horror as his formation began to collapse. In less than 10 minutes, the humans had destroyed or disabled over 30 of his ships. His remaining vessels were beginning to retreat despite his orders. All ships, maintain formation, he screamed into his communicator. Attack the human vessels. But his bioships were no longer listening to him. The organic components of his fleet had taken control, overriding their crews and fleeing from the Terra fleet as fast as their engines could carry them. Dr. Yoon Hai-wan watched the battle from the colonial fleet with amazement and growing terror. Captain, look at how the Terra fleet moves. Each ship anticipates what the others are going to do. It's like they're all connected by quantum entanglement. Woo Jin nodded, unable to take his eyes off the main screen. It's not just the technology. Look at how they fight. They're not angry or excited, they're just efficient. The Terra fleet continued its advance, methodically destroying Corvan ships with weapons that defied understanding. Some human vessels fired beams of coherent gravity that twisted space around their targets. Others launched projectiles that seemed to travel backward through time, striking their targets before they were fired. Captain Oh Ji-hoon's battlecruiser encountered a group of 12 Corvan bioships that had formed a defensive circle. Instead of attacking them directly, he activated his ship's reality anchors and created a pocket of space where the normal laws of physics no longer applied. Inside this bubble of altered reality, the Corvan ships began to fall apart as their organic components tried to adapt to physical laws that changed from moment to moment. Within minutes, all 12 vessels had been reduced to floating debris. The carrier Mokpo's Dream launched its fighter craft, but these were unlike any fighters ever built. Each small ship could phase in and out of normal space, attacking from angles that existed in dimensions the Corvins couldn't even perceive. Commander Shin De-young coordinated the fighter attack with cold precision. Strike Teams Alpha through Delta engage targets in normal space. Strike Teams Echo and Foxtrot attack from parallel dimensions. Let's show them what real terror looks like. The Corvin bioships found themselves under attack from directions that shouldn't exist. Fighters appeared inside their hulls, firing weapons that unmade the very atoms of their targets before disappearing into dimensional spaces that Corvin science had never discovered. Admiral Kim Tae-ho's flagship was one of the few vessels still trying to fight. His crew fired everything they had at the approaching human ships, but their bioplasma weapons simply passed through the Terra Fleet vessels as if they weren't there. "Admiral, our weapons have no effect," reported his tactical officer. "The human ships seem to exist partially outside normal space." "That's impossible. Nothing can exist outside the normal dimensions." What followed was not a battle. It was a lesson in absolute power. Admiral Kim Tae-ho watched his mighty fleet crumble like sand before the Terra Fleet's advance. The humans moved with a coordination that seemed impossible, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be and what they would do. It was as if 30 separate vessels were controlled by a single mind. Captain Oh Ji-hoon's battlecruiser Gwangju's Fury glided through the Corvin formation like a predator among prey. His weapons, Officer Commander Shin De-young, targeted a cluster of biodestroyers that were trying to form a defensive wall. "Firing gravitational lance," she reported with calm efficiency. A beam of twisted space-time lanced out from the human ship, striking the lead Corvin destroyer. But instead of destroying the ship, the weapon created a gravity well that pulled the surrounding vessels together. 6 bioships collided and merged into a twisted mass of metal and organic matter that screamed as it died. "Target eliminated," Shin De-young said, moving to next formation. The Corvin bioships began to panic. Their organic components, bred from the galaxy's most aggressive predators, were reacting to the human ships with pure terror. These were creatures that had never known fear, but they recognized something in the Terra Fleet that triggered every survival instinct they possessed. Captain Yang Kyung-soo commanded the stealth frigate Ulsan Ghost from a dimension that existed between normal space and hyperspace. His ship could appear anywhere in the battle zone without warning, striking from angles that the Corvins couldn't even perceive. "Quantum displacement complete," reported his navigator. "We're inside their formation." Yang's ship materialized in the center of a Corvin squadron, existing in the same space as 3 biocruisers without actually touching them. For a brief moment, the human and alien vessels occupied the same coordinates before Yang activated his weapons. The phase cannons fired directly into the Corvin ships' hulls, bypassing their shields and armor entirely. The biocruisers exploded. From within, their organic components unable to comprehend an attack that came from inside their own space. 3 targets destroyed, Yang reported, relocating to new position. The Ulsan Ghost faded from normal space, leaving behind only the wreckage of the Corvin ships and the confused screams of their biocomponents. Dr. Yoon Hai-wan watched the battle from the colonial fleet with a mixture of awe and horror. The Terra Fleet was demonstrating technology that seemed to violate the basic laws of physics, but they used it with the casual ease of long practice. "Captain Wu Jin," she said quietly, "what happened to Earth? What did they have to go through to develop technology like this?" Wu Jin shook his head, unable to answer. The ships fighting in front of them represented a humanity that had transcended every limitation they had once known, but the price of that transcendence was written in the cold efficiency with which they destroyed their enemies. The carrier Mokpo's Dream launched wave after wave of fighter craft, but these were unlike any fighters that had ever been built. Each small ship existed partially outside normal space, phasing in and out of reality as they attacked. Commander Shin De-young coordinated the fighter assault from her position on the Gwangju's Fury. Her pilots moved through dimensions that the Corvins couldn't even detect, striking from parallel realities and alternate timelines. "Alpha Squadron, attack from temporal dimension +7, she ordered. Beta Squadron, phase into their ships past and destroy them before they were built. The Corvin fleet found itself under attack from its own history. Fighters appeared, in the space where their ships had been minutes ago, firing weapons that erased the biovessels from the timeline itself. Ships that had been fighting moments before simply ceased to have ever existed. Admiral Kim Tae-ho watched this impossible assault with growing despair. His science officer was frantically checking instruments, but the readings made no sense. "Admiral, our ships are being attacked from timelines that don't exist," the officer reported, his voice cracking with strain. "The humans are somehow firing backwards through time. That's impossible. Sir, 17 of our ships have been erased from history. They didn't just die. They never existed in the first place." Kim Tae-ho felt his sanity beginning to fracture. He was a military commander, trained to deal with conventional warfare between species that obeyed the same physical laws. But the Idar humans were fighting with weapons that treated reality itself as just another target. The Terra fleet continued its methodical advance. Each human ship moved with perfect precision, their weapons tearing holes in space and time as they eliminated Corvin vessels. Some bioships tried to fight back, but their plasma weapons passed harmlessly through targets that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain O.G. Hoon's battlecruiser encountered a group of Corvin heavy cruisers that had formed a defensive formation around their command ship. Instead of attacking directly, he activated his ship's reality manipulation systems. "Temporal field generator online," reported his weapons officer, creating causality loop around enemy formation. Space around the Corvin ships began to twist and fold. Time itself became unstable, creating a bubble where cause and effect no longer followed normal rules. Inside this temporal anomaly, the Corvin ships began to destroy themselves in an endless loop, firing weapons that struck their own hulls in the past. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho watched his sensors with fascination and terror. "Captain, the Terra fleet isn't just using advanced technology. They're rewriting the laws of physics around their targets." Commander Park So-young nodded grimly. "Look at the power readings. Each of those ships is generating enough energy to power a star. Where did humanity learn to harness that kind of power?" The battle, if it could still be called that, continued for another hour. The Corvin fleet steadily disintegrated under the Terra fleet's assault. Bioships that had conquered dozens of worlds fled in panic, their organic components overriding their crew's commands in desperate attempts to escape. Some Corvin vessels tried to surrender, broadcasting desperate pleas for mercy. But the Terra fleet ignored them, methodically hunting down every alien ship in the system. This was not about accepting surrender. This was about sending a message. Captain Yang Kyung-soo's stealth frigate appeared inside Admiral Kim Tae-ho's flagship without warning. The Olsen Ghost materialized on the Corvin bridge itself, its weapons trained on the alien commander. "Admiral Kim Tae-ho." Yang's voice came through the ship's communication system. "Fleet Admiral Kang Soo-bin has a message for you." Kim Tae-ho stared at the impossible sight of a human ship that had somehow appeared inside his own vessel. His crew stood frozen, unsure whether to attack or flee. "What message?" he whispered. "You are the sole survivor because we allow it. You will return to your empire and tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that humanity remembers Earth and we will not tolerate threats to our colonies. But your ships, they violate every law of physics. We learned to break those laws because we had to," Yang replied coldly. "When your empire attacked Earth, you forced us to evolve beyond the limitations of normal space and time. This is what you created." The stealth frigate faded from normal space, leaving Admiral Kim Tae-ho alone with his terrified crew. Around his flagship, the last of his bioships were being systematically destroyed by the Terra fleet. Dr. Yoon Hai-won realized the truth as she watched the final phase of the battle. "Captain, the Corvin ships aren't just being destroyed. They're being traumatized. The biocomponents are experiencing psychological damage that they'll carry back to the rest of their species." "What do you mean?" asked Wu Jin. "The organic parts of their ships are like a collective nervous system. Every ship that dies sends its death experience back to the Corvin homeworld through quantum entanglement. The entire empire is feeling this terror right now. The Terra fleet finished destroying the last of the Corvin resistance forces, leaving only Admiral Kim Tae-ho's flagship intact. The space around New Busan was filled with the wreckage of over 180 alien ships, while not a single human vessel showed any damage. Fleet Admiral Kang Soo-bin opened a final communication channel to the surviving Corvan commander. Her image appeared on his bridge screen, calm and emotionless as if she had just finished a routine training exercise. Admiral Kim Tae-ho, you have witnessed the new reality of human military capability. Return to your empire and inform them that Earth's colonies are under our protection. Any further aggression against human worlds will result in the complete annihilation of your species. How? Kim Tae-ho asked, his voice broken. How did you develop such power? When you threatened our survival, you forced us to transcend the limitations that had bound us. We learned to manipulate time, space, gravity, and the fundamental forces of reality itself. We became something beyond your ability to comprehend or defeat. The communication ended, leaving Admiral Kim Tae-ho alone with the wreckage of his fleet and the knowledge that his empire had awakened something far more terrible than they could have imagined. The Terra fleet began to withdraw, their impossible ships fading back into the dimensional tiers from which they had emerged. But before they left, Fleet Admiral Kang Soo-bin sent one final message to Captain Lee Woo-jin and the colonial defenders. The silence after the battle was more terrifying than the fighting had been. Captain Lee Woo-jin stood on the bridge of Harmony's edge, staring at the empty space where 200 Corvan ships had been fighting just hours before. Now there was only debris and the fading energy signatures of weapons that shouldn't exist. Admiral Kim Tae-ho's flagship hung alone in the darkness, its bio-hull scarred and trembling. The organic components of his ship were still screaming, their terror echoing through quantum space back to the Corvan homeworld. Every member of his species would feel this fear, would know that something had broken their most powerful fleet without effort. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho checked his sensors for the 100th time. Captain, I'm still detecting residual energy signatures from the Terra fleet. The reading suggests they're manipulating space-time on a fundamental level. Dr. Yoon Hae-won looked up from her data analysis with wide eyes. The quantum echoes from their weapons are still bouncing through subspace. Captain, I think we're seeing evidence of technology that exists partially outside normal time. What do you mean? Asked Commander Park So-young. The energy signatures arrived before the ships did. That's why Lieutenant Choi was getting strange readings earlier. We were detecting the quantum footprints of weapons that would be fired in the future. Woo Jin felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had not just advanced their technology, they had learned to move outside the normal flow of time itself. What had happened to Earth to force such an impossible evolution? Admiral Kim Tae-ho's voice came over the communication channel, broken and defeated. Human vessels, this is Admiral Kim Tae-ho. I am preparing to withdraw my remaining forces from this system. I will carry your message to the Corvan Empire. Captain Woo Jin opened the channel. Admiral, what will you tell them? There was a long pause before Kim Tae-ho answered. I will tell them the truth, that humanity has become something beyond our understanding, that your species wields power over the fundamental forces of reality itself, that any further aggression against human worlds will result in our complete destruction. And will they believe you? They will feel the terror of my bioships through the quantum link. Every Corvan in the Empire is experiencing the fear of our organic components right now. They will know that we encountered something that exists beyond the normal laws of physics. The Corvan flagship began to move away from New Busan, its damaged hull leaking biofluid into space. As it retreated, it sent out signals to the scattered remnants of the invasion fleet, calling the survivors to regroup for the journey home. Engineer Lim Sang-min worked frantically at his station on the Harmony's edge, trying to analyze the energy, readings from the Terra fleet's weapons. Captain, these signatures don't make sense. The power levels suggest technology that can manipulate gravity, time, and quantum mechanics simultaneously. Is that even possible? Asked Park So-young. According to everything we know about physics, no. But these readings suggest that humanity has learned to break the fundamental laws that govern reality. They're not just using advanced technology, they're rewriting the rules of existence itself. As the last Corvan ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying their message of terror back to their empire. The Terra fleet began to withdraw as well. The 30 impossible ships moved toward the dimensional rifts they had created, preparing to return to whatever Earth had become. Fleet Admiral Kang Subin opened a final communication channel to the colonial defenders. Her image appeared on the main screen of every human ship in the system, calm and commanding despite what they had just witnessed. Captain Li Wujin, your defense of New Busan was noted and appreciated. The colonies are safe under Terra fleet protection. Admiral, Wujin said carefully, what happened to Earth? How did humanity develop such advanced technology? Kang Subin's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. When the Corvan Empire first attacked our homeworld, they forced us to make choices that no species should have to make. We transcended the limitations of normal space and time because the alternative was extinction. But the cost was everything we once were, she replied quietly. But the price of failure would have been everything we could ever become. Humanity endures, Captain. That is, what matters. Dr. Yoon Haiwan leaned forward. Admiral, the technology you're using violates several fundamental laws of physics. How is that possible? Dr. Yoon, those laws are not absolute truths. They are simply the boundaries that most species accept because they lack the will or necessity to transcend them. When survival is at stake, any barrier can be broken. Lieutenant Choi Min-ho checked his readings one more time. Admiral, my sensors are detecting quantum echoes from your ships that suggest you exist partially outside normal time-space. Are you still entirely human? Fleet Admiral Kang Subin paused before answering. We are what humanity became when it was forced to evolve beyond the possible. Whether that makes us still human or something else entirely is a question we no longer ask. The Terra fleet ships began to fade from normal space, disappearing into dimensional rifts that closed behind them like wounds in reality healing. As they departed, Admiral Kang Subin sent one final transmission. The Earth remembers its children, humanity endures, we will be watching. The rifts sealed themselves, leaving the colonial fleet alone in the space around New Busan. The planet below was safe, its population saved by the intervention of a humanity that had become something beyond imagination. Captain Nam Dong-wook, who had survived the destruction of his ship Soul's Pride in an escape pod, was picked up by the rescue teams. As he was brought aboard the Harmony's Edge, he looked around at the debris field that had once been a Corvan invasion fleet. Captain, he said to Wu Jin, what do we tell the people on the planet? How do we explain what just happened? Wu Jin thought about that question for a long time. How could they explain that humanity had evolved beyond the normal laws of physics? How could they describe weapons that fired backwards through time, or ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously? We'd tell them the truth, he said, finally. Earth survived, humanity endured, and when we needed them most, they came to save us. Commander Park So-young received a priority message on quantum frequencies that shouldn't have existed. The transmission came through channels that her equipment couldn't possibly access, carrying data in formats that human technology had never developed. Captain, I'm receiving a message on an impossible frequency. It's from the Terra fleet. What does it say? Park So-young read the transmission twice before speaking. Keep watch. Humanity's reach now extends beyond the possible. We are the inheritors of infinity. The message ended, but the quantum channel remained open for a few more seconds. Through it, they could hear something that sounded like whispers, in a language that might have once been human, but had evolved into something that could describe concepts beyond normal understanding. Dr. Yoon Haiwan analyzed the residual energy signatures for hours after the Terra fleet departed. Her conclusions were both fascinating and terrifying. Captain, the quantum echoes suggest that those ships exist in a state of temporal flux. They're not just moving through space, they're moving through time itself. Meaning they might be able to appear anywhere in history where they're needed, past, present, or future. The Terra fleet isn't just protecting human colonies in the present, they're protecting them across all possible timelines. Engineer Lim Sang-min discovered something else in his analysis of the weapon signatures. Captain, I think I understand how they destroyed the Corvan ships so easily. They weren't just using superior firepower, they were attacking from multiple points in time simultaneously. How is that possible? Each shot was fired from several different moments, hitting the same target across multiple timelines. The Corvin ships weren't just destroyed in the present, they were erased from every possible future. The implications of this discovery left the crew silent. Humanity had not just developed advanced weapons, they had learned to wage war across the entire timeline of existence itself. As the colonial fleet began the process of salvaging what remained of the battle, they made another disturbing discovery. The Corvin bioships had not simply been destroyed, they had been traumatized on a cellular level. The organic components of the alien vessels carried memories of terror that would be passed on to every new ship grown by the Corvin Empire. "Captain," reported Dr. Yoon, "the biotechnology in these wrecks shows signs of genetic trauma. The Corvin ships won't just remember being defeated, they'll be born afraid of human technology." The message was clear. The Terra fleet had not just won a battle. They had rewired the evolutionary development of an entire species. The Corvins would carry their fear of humanity in their very DNA, passing it on to every generation that followed. 3 days after the battle, as the colonial fleet finished its rescue operations, Captain Li Wu-jin stood alone on his bridge, looking out at the stars. New Busan was safe, its people alive because of the intervention of a humanity that had transcended every limitation they had once known.